What exactly is calling to us on this path of spiritual growth and transforming our consciousness? Joe Argazzi, my returning guest today, shares that he continues to commit to himself because his life is feeling better all the time. And isn't that reason enough? Today, we talk about the journey of life, the reality of the more challenging times, and the repeated call back to taking deep and nurturing care for ourselves. We also talk about the invitation for men to dive into the work and explore their own feelings and emotions. Joe is a not to be missed wisdom keeper, and I hope you love this episode as much as I do. Welcome back, Joe Argazzi, to Mystical Sisterhood. You visit us in episode 35, which I had called How to Live a Life of Personal Truth and Spiritual Devotion, which was just the perfect title for that. And I replayed it in episode 76 because it held so much truth. And now you're going to be somewhere around episode 110. So it was perfect timing for you and your voice and your wisdom and what you've learned through your lived experience to come back and share it with our audience. So welcome.
Thank you, Maureen. What a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's so
Yeah.
fun. I'll remind the audience that you and I have done Susie Lula's soul care, or now she's shifting to spiritual psychology coaching
Hmm.
certification. And we're going on our third year of studying together. And it's just been such a pleasure and an honor to do that. And I was going to point out there's been a few men who have come through certification, yet you've stayed the course. So I want to talk about men somewhat today in the podcast. We'll get to
Mm,
that, but I think we're holding space and we're holding seats for who's ever meant to come learn alongside us. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I
That's
love
right.
that. If you're new to the podcast and you didn't get to know Joe earlier, go back and listen to the episodes that I just mentioned. So now that we're starting, you've had that episode where they can get to know you and your background a bit.
Mm.
But I'm just wondering, we're talking about the path of consciousness, the path of personal growth, the investment in our own transformation. But as a longtime practitioner of these things, I just wanted to start out by asking what keeps you on the path and what motivates you to keep investing in yourself? Why is it important?
Well, it's important because my life is getting better.
Mm.
It feels better. My life has expanded and become more. So that in and of itself is motivation to keep going. There's also a place within my heart that has always yearned and had this longing to connect with, and it didn't even know the word God, when I was really little. There was just something that I was seeking. I've been a seeker since as long as I could remember,
Mhm.
and I wasn't even sure what it was, but I knew there was something more. And so that I've just been on the path consciously now since I would say, gosh, in my late teens when I came out. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
that's
disrupted
amazing.
everything. It's like I had to ask some bigger questions and find out what the heck is going on here.
And
Yeah.
then even at those earlier times in your life, maybe you didn't have the language for it, but would you say that the universe started to bring you just what you needed?
Oh, 100%. Always looking back, I can see, oh, of course that happened at the time. And oftentimes the portal to growth is through pain. It's
Hmm.
just sort of the way it works. And I've learned over the years how to make friends with the pain, make friends with the challenges that come up, knowing that, oh, there's something in here that actually is for me. Originally, I came from this victim mentality, and I was able to shift that around and saying, oh, how is it for me? What is it that it's seeking? What is seeking to be known through me and as me, through this experience? And so is it a bad thing? Or is it like, oh, that's the impetus? Or as a teacher of mine, Abraham, would say, that's the contrast. And maybe your listeners will appreciate this. And they put it so simply. Without the cold and dark, we would not know we want light and warmth. So
Hmm.
the cold and dark is the impetus to move towards light and warmth. That's the
Hmm.
contrast. So would I define cold and dark as a bad thing? No. It
Hmm.
simply is what it is, and it's giving me the opportunity to move towards light and warmth. So staying within that analogy. And so now when things come up in my life, I'll feel and lean into the challenge, and it's not comfortable. It
Hmm.
doesn't feel good, but I know that there is something in there that's for me, for my growth, for my evolution. And that's the thing I keep my eye on. That's the thing I want more than anything. So I don't stay in it as long as I used to. right? I move towards what's seeking to evolve through me or emerge through me, better said. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would imagine that you recognize it way quicker than you used to.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. And there's tools, there's tools we pick up along the way, or
Hmm.
certainly I have. And I know in Susie's courses, she's, boy, just jam-packed full of tools and how to work with challenges and what appears to be an obstacle.
What I love about, let's just say, the work, which
Yeah.
that can encompass many, many, many types of work. From, I know you've been a practitioner of A Course in Miracles to the 12 steps to like all these different things. And that's what I love about life is I was indoctrinated to think that there was more one way to do things. I think religion completely tells us that story. Like there's
Hmm.
one way to get to the answer. And then I kind of was on that path for a while. And then, I mean, it's been, I think since I went through my illness that I started to question that, and that's going on 7 years now, started to question it. And that's part of the reason of being of the podcast is I get to have people come and talk about all these different ways that they have, healed the divide within. And, for some of us, it's going to be the same thing for other, but I think it's just such a beautiful menu or smorgasbord of like what's for me. And I also love hearing
Hmm.
something again and again and again and in his way and her way and their way. And then I start to get it. Oh, okay, and I love that part of it, that the listener, that you might say something today, but maybe they've heard, but you're saying it in a different way and something then clicks.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And like you, that's where it's like I used to early on, I would get, I'd find a book and I'd be so inspired and I would think, oh, this is the answer. And then I would buy it for all my friends. And then it's like, and then something else would happen. Oh, no, no, this you have to read. And they were so kind. We're happy for you, honey. We're really happy for you, but it's okay. You don't have to buy us all the books. I realized, oh, that's for me. And I love my enthusiasm,
Yes.
because if I'm experiencing a transformation of some kind inside, I truly do want that for the people in my life
Hmm.
because I know how it feels, but I've learned to wait until they ask.
Well, that's very interesting. I love that because I can see myself in that too. And then I bet, like, aside from giving the books, while you're transforming, your energy is changing. So
A
you
hundred
can't
percent.
you can't even see it, but that energy you're bringing is healing. So you need not maybe even say a word, and what you're experiencing is shining forth.
100%. That's right.
Okay.
All things being energy, and I love that. That's an Abraham thing that I learned from them. And actually, Nikola Tesla said, if we come to know that everything is energy and vibration and frequency, then we'll begin to understand the mysteries of the universe.
Mm,
And when I really took that on, because then it took the personification of God, some human deity, out of it, and then it made it all about energy.
mm,
And that to me, I love that concept. And
yeah.
I run with that. That's the thing that works for me. So it's like if my vibration is a little lower, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It just means,
Right.
oh, that's where that is. I can actually utilize some tools and find ways to raise my vibration that's more in alignment with who I
Hmm.
am and who
Hmm.
I know myself to be. So,
So, would sometimes a lower vibration feeling tip you off to, okay, there's some work for me here to do. I'm getting a little further from my truth. Like, how do you read that in your body?
well, the way I read that in my body is by how it feels, right? We all
Mm-hmm.
have an emotional guidance system, our own very personal GPS, which is
Hmm.
cool. And it's unique to each of us because we've got 8 billion people on the planet, 8 billion levels of consciousness, right? So
Right.
we all have our own unique experience of that. And what I've come to learn is that our emotions are guiding me. They guide me to know when I'm in alignment and when I'm out of alignment. When I'm in alignment, I feel a sense of peace more than anything and acceptance and openness and expansiveness. And then I can feel my vibration literally lift up. And it's like, oh, that feels good. And
Mm-hmm.
isn't that the whole point? It's like feeling good feels good,
Yeah,
you know? And
definitely.
then I'm not resisting anything. I'm in the flow of something magnificent, something mysterious. I'm on this adventure called life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it by how it feels. So if I'm depressed, if I'm angry, if I'm upset, I don't judge those feelings. They have messages for me. And basically they're just saying, hey, you're out of alignment with the truth of who you are. That's why
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And maybe you've given your power to another person or a situation or a country or whatever. Something external is the bottom line. And the
Mm-hmm.
real work is, oh, bring it back inside because that's where the real power is. It's
Okay.
over my ability to choose how I'm going to experience anything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and
And,
that's amazing. That's
and
freedom.
that's freedom. And that's so well said and explained. And one of the things that I wanted you to talk about, because I think you're very powerful in talking about it, is so many of us can identify with giving away either that power or parts of ourselves to something on the external. And I think it's a really important conversation how we over identify with it could be the alcohol, it could be shopping, it could be gossiping, you name it. Like anyone listening today could be like, oh, mine is that. And whatever
Mhm.
whatever that is our journey. That's part of our soul's journey. But
Totally.
the conversation is really quite, I don't want to call it simple, but would you speak to that, like the parts of you that used to identify with the outer and how you saw yourself, or you went through the journey of like understanding like, oh my gosh, those things are not going to bring me the happiness. They're not going to bring me the joy.
Yeah, absolutely. In part because I accomplished a lot of the things that I thought were going to bring me happiness and joy. The
Mm,
relationship, the money, the job, the house, all the things that society is certainly in our culture say, boy, if you accomplish these things, you've succeeded, you've made it, right? And then, but the trap there is, oh, there'll always be more then. Oh, it's the
mm-hmm,
bigger house, more money, a better body, it's just a nonstop, right? And because I've experienced that, it's like, and there was still something missing inside.
yeah.
It was shallow. It was kind of exciting, but then after a while, it was like, what is it? What's going on? And
Mm-hmm,
again, I was focused externally. And also in the external realm, things come and go and they ebb and flow. If my
mm-hmm,
sense of happiness and joy and safety and security lies within a bank account or a relationship or how my body looks, look at all those things are temporary at best. And I
mm,
guess as long as they're around, I'm going to be okay. What happens when they're taken away?
mm-hmm.
And my life experience, and I'm 69 now, I've had a lot and I've lost a lot. And it was actually in the losing of what I thought was important that became the portal to recognizing, oh, what I'm really searching for lies within me.
So beautiful. Yep.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm,
and going after those external things was predicated upon a belief system that I wasn't aware of that I had, that I took on as a very, very young boy, that I wasn't enough, that
mm-hmm.
there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't lovable, I wasn't important, I didn't matter. So to overcompensate for that, I really focused on the external things and
Yeah.
went after them, right? Because I wanted to be loved. That's what was motivating that. I wanted to be included. I wanted to be part of, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's a very human thing. And I'll tell you something, I love that part of myself that
Yeah.
was searching in that way. I have
Mm-hmm.
such compassion and empathy for him. It's like, good for you. I get it. I get
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah.
But the pain became so great. It's like, what happened was, as those things began to, as the pain became greater and greater, the opportunity to look within and dive deeper and deeper. I think I heard once, to enable to transcend, we have to descend. Isn't
Mm,
that nice? And
mm-hmm.
so descending into the unknown,
Mm-hmm.
what was the fear? The fear
Mm-hmm.
about not being enough, not being lovable, not being cared about, all
Yeah.
those ideas that I took on. And it was like, as I got in touch with that, and that was painful. Who wants to admit that? I
Yeah.
didn't think I was lovable. I didn't think I was important. I didn't think that I mattered. But I had
Mm-hmm.
to get real with that part of myself and able for that to be healed.
Yeah.
And what I realized was that no person, place, or thing had the power to heal that. Only I
Mm.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a journey. And,
Yeah.
you see a lot of people, I've heard people say like, I'm afraid to look at that. I don't want to go there. But at the same time, the feeling of being where you are is uncomfortable. It's calling us. It's not, that's what I'm getting more and more in touch with too, is
Mm,
just the layers of intelligence of who we are, like this system we have. And
Hmm.
it is dogged in its pursuit of getting our attention.
And that's why we
Right?
can say for sure, right, that it's a loving universe. It's like, well, I don't need to be loved quite that much, you know?
Mhm. Right. Yes, I wanted to say that remind what you said, like the pursuit of like the next, the next, the next, the car you drive, the this, the that. I was watching with my family Aaron Rodgers' Enigma. It's a documentary, three part. I've seen two, but essentially in it, in the first one, it goes when he goes to the East Coast team from the Green Bay Packers,
Hmm.
and but they go back in his football career and he wins the title, the national title, Super Bowl in 2010, and he says, why do I feel empty? Why do I feel empty? I've got the world, like the trophy, the everything, right, the riches.
Right.
Why do I feel empty? And it's a great documentary. In the second part, he goes into how he then discovers ayahuasca, and that becomes, part of his
Oh, no
healing
kidding.
journey. Yeah, it's good though. It's
Oh,
I
I'm gonna
we
watch that.
Yeah, we just watched it recently, but that's called Enigma. But it's very vulnerable, right? It's vulnerable to come out and say these things. Yet, when we share those parts of our story, it gives someone permission to be like, oh my God, I feel that way too. That's
100%.
me. If he feels that way, if you feel that way, okay, what's here for me?
Well, and God bless Aaron Rodgers. I'll definitely watch that because he represents what men are supposed to be like,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the epitome, right? The
Mm-hmm.
quarterback, the Super Bowl winner, he's the guy. And if
Mm-hmm.
he's saying, wait a second,
Yeah.
there must be something more, well then God bless him, man. Like for
Mm-hmm.
real. So I'm definitely that's a calling for me right now as a
Yes.
guy myself, as a man
Uh-huh.
myself on this planet. It's bringing more of that awareness. So what defines a real man?
Mm-hmm.
And boy, I'm just
Yeah.
right by that. That's great.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you probably were working with men and women these days, I think.
Mm,
However, are you seeing changes of more individuals coming to the table, more seekers, more explorers into the realm of, because I know that because you've been the sole male practitioner as a coach within our greater
yeah.
group that's growing, is a lot of people have you top of mind for a man to come see you. What are you either feeling or seeing for men in culture and society today? And what's the invitation?
Well, it's shifting and changing.
Mm-hmm.
Like as soon as, because that was my pattern that Aaron had on a different scale, but it was
Mm-hmm.
still like you accumulate some things, but yet you still feel empty inside. What's missing? And then, we go on that journey. And what I'm finding is that more and more and more men in their mid 50s are hitting that point. And it's like,
Yep.
wow, like I did what I thought I was supposed to do, and yet something's missing. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you something, when they come to me, I'm so humbled by that. And let me put it this way too. Straight white men
Mm-hmm.
in our culture are born into the power automatically. They don't have to ask the bigger questions. Now, I'm a white man, but I'm a gay guy. And
Mm-hmm.
so because of that, I had to start asking bigger questions as I came out around my late teens,
Mm-hmm.
right? I could still pass, if you
Right.
will,
Yeah.
but it's like, so any minority or woman, it's like they're already asking the bigger questions all along once they're born, right? But they're
Mm-hmm.
feeling the power differential. But when
Right.
straight white men hit that place in their
Mm-hmm.
mid 50s and they come and they're asking, I'm so humbled by that. It's like there's something within them that's seeking to know more.
Mm.
Oftentimes it takes a little longer, but I'll tell you this, when they consistently show up, that tells me that their soul, that their heart is invested. That heals my own homophobia, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm
Mm-hmm.
working with men like that, it's like, wow, we
Wow.
are one.
Mm-hmm.
We are the same, you
And
know.
it's you what you're saying too, what I'm getting is it's big work. It's big work to even step into that direction and to say,
Totally.
not all of this am I buying into. And someone else may lead us to, let's say water, but it's always our free will and choice of what we do with that. But we cannot minimize what earthquake is happening with our ancestral and generational lineage. Like when we come forward and say, no more, it's got to end somewhere.
Exactly. And I can't know for anyone their journey,
Mm-hmm.
but I know if they're sitting before me, there's
Yeah.
something within them that is seeking. And
Mm-hmm.
so through my humility, it's like I'm willing to be present and go on that journey with them. And
Mm-hmm.
that's sacred work to me.
Joe, what are the ways that you see, speaking about men? You mentioned the bravado with our football culture. What are the other ways that you've seen? I'm just going to go with men right now, and we can talk
Yeah,
about women too. But
yeah,
how
sure.
I feel like men don't always get the airspace here because I interview a lot of women. But like, what are the ways, just in general, that they've been cultured and conditioned to be a certain something? Back in the day when I was growing up, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or whatever
Right,
that book was.
right, right, right,
do,
right.
do you really buy into that kind of stuff, or do you just kind of see that whoever comes to me is a unique soul? So I guess there's two questions. I kind of
Well,
blended
that's
two
it.
things there.
Yeah, I don't really buy into that per se because it
Yeah.
creates separation.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, we're all souls.
Mm-hmm.
We incarnate as a male or a female, but look what's happening right now in terms of transgender. And that generation that's coming in
Yes.
more and more and more, it's more, they use the word fluid. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a blending, there's something that's happening with us as a species, which is
Oh.
really exciting. It's like we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of like slowly dissolving those old ideas of what's a man and what's a woman. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's like we're all souls, we're all human beings on this planet. And that's beautiful to me. That's really cool to see happening. So when I see men of my generation come, before me, the younger guys get the languaging quicker and easier because they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the indoctrination that we had in my generation,
Yep.
where it's like, here's the biggie: men, we don't cry, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
means we don't have feelings unless it's that bravado kind of egoic sort of puff the chest up. And we see that going on right now quite a bit. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, and that bullying thing, and that's what power is, and that's how you take charge, and that's how you take control. And that's an old paradigm that's crumbling. And in a
Yeah.
way, that's
Mm-hmm.
why that's getting louder, because on some level they know it's crumbling. They
Mm-hmm.
know there's a transitioning
I agree.
happening.
Yeah,
And so
definitely.
to me, I hold on to that,
Mm-hmm.
especially given where we are in our country right now, because
Yeah.
I know there's something new. Like on the individual, something new seeking to emerge. That's also true on the collective. Something new is happening. And you know what? It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and nothing's going to stop it because evolution and life will not be denied. So
No.
from my standpoint, I hold on to that in the midst of where we are right now. So
Yep.
working with men, one of the things, to go back to your question, it's like helping them get in touch with what they're feeling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know what I was feeling when I started this work. I lived from my head.
Yeah.
And my therapist was like trying to, well, what do you feel? He gave me a list of feelings to actually look at. And do you identify with any of those? It's like, well, I think I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a while for me to finally get in touch what I really felt. That was a big aha for me when I really could identify, oh, I am sad, I'm
Yeah.
scared, I'm
Mm-hmm.
angry. Men are okay to be angry, but they're not allowed to be sad. They're not allowed to be confused. They're not allowed to be anything other than in control alpha male.
Yeah. Yes.
You
It could
know,
be construed as weak, right?
Totally. And what a
Yes.
trap and what a disservice to these men, to them, to me. And when
Yeah.
I really got in touch with that, my life began to change. And when I began to realize that, oh, emotions, like we were saying earlier, it's a guidance system.
Mm-hmm.
So how the heck was I being guided back when I thought it had to be like XYZ? I wasn't. I was totally out of touch with my spirit and living totally from the head and from what society and culture said I was supposed to be. So I
Yep.
lost my authentic, genuine self. Or let me put it this way, I wasn't in touch with it. By the dismantling of all those old concepts and starting to come into alignment more with my authentic
Yeah.
self,
Yeah.
that's the gift, man.
No, I was going to say that's the gift of the individual work too. When you get that you begin to teach about the emotions, and then you can see the mirror of where judgment comes in for people. Like, well, that just layer upon layer of judgment, and then we look at that, right? Like, okay, because I think by even allowing the question to be asked, like, how do you feel? Let's get in touch with your feelings. Something inside of them is starting to question, well, maybe I am worthy. That unworthiness deal that was put upon me, well, wait a minute. Maybe I am worthy of knowing what my feeling feels like, honoring my emotions, knowing I'm important enough, right?
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, as men begin more and more to get in touch with that and that truth for themselves, guess what? So do their sons.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And that
Uh-huh.
brings tears to my eyes. It's like
Yeah.
to be able to mentor young men now. I
Absolutely.
have quite a few young men, that I
Uh-huh.
work with, and being able to mentor them. And I know I represent the father figure for them, and that we can cry together, we can explore these concepts together,
Yeah.
and go on that journey together, and then feel safe and heard and seen, and start to open up to their own fears,
Mm-hmm.
of feeling
Mm-hmm.
criticized, or whatever is going on for them. But to hold
Absolutely.
a sacred, safe space for them to begin to explore that, ah, that's how we're changing and growing.
Oh,
That's why
yeah.
this
Yeah.
work just thrills me, it's just
It's so good. One of the things I love about bringing the spirituality into, as Susie calls it, spiritual psychology, but bringing the
yeah,
soul into the work, bringing the spiritual into the work, a universal concept such as there's no right or wrong. It's
yeah,
so applicable. So again, another feeder idea. You start to hear that. Well, what do you mean that's not right or wrong? But then it's a new lens that you put on, a new perspective. And when we take the rightness or wrongness away from anything, it's a lot clearer to see, I feel. It takes away a lot of like baggage from it.
totally, Maureen.
Mm-hmm.
That changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pivotal when I was asked, what if there's no right or wrong? And
Yeah.
could I begin to play with that and just let the ideas of right or wrong or good or bad go? It shifted so much for me because I wanted to be the good boy. I wanted to be right. Being
Mm-hmm.
right meant I would be accepted and I would be loved. So if
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong, well, then how am I going to get love?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how deep it went for me. I
Mm-hmm.
had my very first therapist saying, well, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And then my arrogant 28-year-old self said, well, being right makes me happy. And he said, well, you run with that and let me know how it goes. And a while later, there I am in his
Mm-hmm.
office crying. He's like, I don't want to be right anymore. I just want to be at peace. I just want to be
Right.
happy. And I don't even know what happy means right now, but I
Yeah.
know it's not that.
Yeah, because that maybe even misery keeps on
Yeah,
continuing, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you today too, and I think it's kind of like a twofold question because the question was, what do you feel are keys to connected relationships? And I know that is grounded in the relationship to ourselves. And we
Always.
it's up to you. Like, where do you want to start with that? The key to connected relationships.
Yeah, that's it. The first relationship is with the self,
Hmm.
and to know thyself and to do that work. Because if I don't do that, I really have nothing to offer you
Hmm.
other than some concept, some mental, intellectual construct.
Hmm.
So, but the more I know who I am, and the more I get in touch with who I am and begin to feel the truth of who I am, what I need from you has lessened and lessened and lessened. I used to look at relationships as that, oh, they're going to give me something. When you do the work and you go so deep as to recognize you don't need anything from anyone, it kind of dispels the whole romantic stuff that we
Hmm.
were inundated with. And I was a real romantic. I knew how to romance people.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to sustain it once I got into it, but I was really good at leading up to it. And so I had many, many relationships. And then finally
Mm.
recognizing, why isn't that working? Oh, it's me. I'm the
Yeah.
common denominator. There's something off that I'm not seeing that I need to get in touch with, right? And I was looking at other people to give me something. It's almost like wanting to steal from them. That wasn't my concept, but
Hmm.
that's what I was
Hmm.
trying to do,
Hmm.
because deep down inside, I didn't feel, I wanted them to love me so I would feel okay. Well,
Right.
that's not
Yeah.
their job to make me feel okay. I want a partner that supports me and inspires me and sees me for who I am.
Hmm.
But I know that my happiness is my work, and that my joy and my well-being, my safety, my security lies within me. And when I get that, and I have a partner that also gets that, oh man, it changes everything. Now we're on a
Hmm.
whole new journey, right? There's nothing to get. There's all kinds of things to give.
Hmm.
Love, and you can be romantic, and you can have all of that stuff, but it no longer carries the weight of their being accountable and responsible for my happiness and my well-being.
Yeah.
That is my work. And what that does is eradicate codependency,
For sure. I love
right?
the when you said, I could get the relationship, but I couldn't sustain it because I was thinking like, and that is a mirror to not really having a sustained relationship with yourself. You may have ducked in. You may have been learning these like the early things you were learning, right? And they would be
Hmm.
like, I don't know what
Hmm.
you'd call that. Maybe they'd feel good, or they'd be little band-aids, or they'd take you so far. I'm speculating here. You can tell me,
Yeah,
but you see, but now you have that really sustained correlated word like sustenance with the relationship to yourself. And that's just everything.
that's
It's
everything. And now
everything.
I can show up in relationship as a whole man,
Mm-hmm.
as a
Mm-hmm.
whole person, as a
Mm-hmm.
whole soul,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
now I have something to really give. I'm not giving to get, I'm giving because it's coming from the overflow of my heart.
Yeah.
It's very
Mm-hmm.
different, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's beautiful. And
It is
so if
beautiful.
my partner's having a hard time, I'm not trying to fix them so I'll get my needs met, which was my old MO.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let me be with you and stand next to you as you move through that. And is there anything I can do for you? The old me was about trying to fix them because I felt if they were fixed, then I would get it came from a very selfish, very young, very unconscious dynamic that was within me until I did
Well,
it.
and you mentioned, well, two things are coming to mind, but you had mentioned being more a victim to your life when you were younger.
Totally,
I
100%.
That was me till, gosh, I say like I woke up when I did Dr. Shafali's conscious parenting program, and she was such a prolific teacher. That was in the fall of 2020.
Mm.
And she's teaching about this victim consciousness, and I'm taking notes, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, that is me. And I didn't have those words in my world before that at all, because we know that this personal growth work is exploding right now.
Right,
So
right.
she's a great teacher. It's coming through her. I
Yeah,
said, oh no, oh no. And it was a pivotal moment. And I think I even went to my partner and my husband, and I went down and I was like, whoa. And that's a vulnerable thing to share too, right? That we
totally.
have been playing a role that we are starting to see like we're responsible for healing that part of ourselves.
That's right.
And then something else you said about partnership reminded me just of the simplicity that Gary Zukov talks about in Seed of the
Mm,
Soul.
yeah,
And that book blows me away because I didn't read that till I met Susie and she mentioned it. And books from 1989, I believe.
yeah, yeah.
And at that pivotal juncture, he said the new model for relationships is two souls together. And this could be for our friends. Could be for you and a child,
Right,
right? But two souls moving through life together, so keenly interested in each other's soul's progression here in this timeline. And I was like, I knew it. You read that and you're just like, that's it. That's it. We're not here
totally.
to be
Right.
saying,
Yeah,
you did this, you got to change to make this better. And I do believe it's two people coming to the table and also doing the work, whether it's a friendship or your parent or whoever it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. Yeah,
It,
beautiful. And if there's a
it,
romantic aspect to that, then all the better. But
yeah.
the goal is the same, right? The
Hmm.
principle is the same that Gary was talking about. It's about I'm here to support your soul's growth because I want that for you, because I
Yeah.
want that for me. I
I
want
love
you to be
it.
everything that you can be. And by the way, if that means you're to go off somewhere and you're done in terms of the form of this
Hmm.
relationship, that'll be painful or sad, but I won't be in a fetal position. It's like,
Hmm.
but I want that for you then. Then you go and you have that experience because I want you to be everything that you came here to be. That's what
Hmm.
real love is.
Hmm.
Sure. I just went through that in my own relationship. It transitioned and off they went. And, was there a sadness? Absolutely. But I was because I've done so much of this work that you and I do,
Yeah.
and I'm so clear about who I am, and I'm in touch with that on an emotional level, spiritually, emotionally, physically. It's like, yeah, there was a sadness to it, but you know what? I'm okay. And I'll continue to be okay. And we
Hmm.
can be
Yeah.
friends. The only thing that's changing is the form.
The form. Hmm.
The love maintains. I
Hmm.
heard Marianne Williamson say that decades ago at a lecture in A Course in Miracles. And when she said that, something within me clicked. I couldn't embody it, but I knew there was a truth
You
there.
know. Hmm.
Yeah. And now,
Hmm.
oh, I'm getting goosebumps, Marie.
Yeah.
And guess what? I've been able to embody that.
That's beautiful.
And
Yeah.
that's what keeps me on the path. I want
Hmm.
more. I want to
Hmm.
continue to have those experiences, to be free, what I was saying earlier,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and what would you say, like you said, like you love working with younger clients. If you had a message for the younger person listening to this and they're already like in their early 20s starting to awaken, would you say that stay the path, stay the path? Because we
Oh,
know
yeah.
that life is going to hand us what it hands us. However, we can feel better earlier than our generations.
And that's exactly what's happening. I have a 16-year-old that I'm working with, and I've fallen in love with her in the best way, right? In the
Yes.
truest way, right? Because she's grasping these concepts. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, honey, if you get this now at 16,
Yeah.
girl, I'm 69. And
Right.
so you've got decades on me. Your life is gonna like take off.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I can see the light in her eyes behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Still 16 and, still a teenager and going through those things, but the ability to grasp these concepts and not just intellectually, but begin to feel the truth of it, that tells me about this generation coming up. They're already downloading what you and
Yes.
I, at our age, took a while to get to. They're coming in with this. So it's not like a
Mm-hmm.
foreign concept. We're just inspiring it within them a little bit sooner.
So good.
They're isn't that cool? And it's like,
It's so
oh
cool.
man, if I knew that
Yeah.
at 16, are you kidding?
I know. And they do have access to, and this is for all of us, but I don't personally do TikTok, but I know my kids will tell me some of the things they see, and we can demonize it as parents or elders, but there's some seeding of some beautiful ideas like this through social media and being able to, people are coming out. And I think that that's a gift of social media too, is voices coming forward, voices, just
Absolutely.
like let that voice out. What do you want to say? Because so many of
Absolutely.
us grew up in environments where we just didn't get to say what we wanted to say.
Exactly. Nor did we
Hmm.
have the information that
No.
we have today or access to these
Yeah.
teachings.
Hmm.
And like with social media, and it's like true of anything, we find what we're looking for,
Yeah.
right? So whether it's social media in and of itself, it's neutral, it's what we do with it.
Hmm.
Right? Because I find there are people I subscribe to and that I find and that every morning it's part of my spiritual practice. There are
Yeah.
people that I follow and they're just little snippets, just enough to give me my hit for the day, my
Right.
inspiration, and that becomes my contemplative thought for the day,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
love it.
And
Yep.
if we're out there doing it, so are they. So I'm going to find them, and those are the people that I subscribe to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it becomes your formula. I just thought of a funny question, and that's
Uh,
like, if you had like a signature soup that you put together and X amount of qualities were going to go into that soup, and that soup was going to sustain you for life, what would the qualities be that went into it?
oh, what a great, great question. First and foremost, non-judgment.
Non-judgment. Mm,
Non-judgment,
mm,
compassion,
yeah.
and the removal of right and wrong and good or bad, you know.
Yeah.
Curiosity is a big
Hmm.
one.
Hmm.
Yeah, those are some of the main ingredients I would put into my soup.
I love it.
I,
I
lo- I
know.
love I love the whole soup concept. Yeah, thank you.
Well,
How
and
about
if
you?
you,
What would you put in yours?
let me think here. Well, I think the base would be love,
Uh,
honesty, integrity, absolutely compassion, willingness to be open to the questions, willingness to allow someone to guide me. That would be a
mm,
big
mm,
one. I always think of like, well, I was going to say, but I want to talk about how you talk about inner child work too. But
yeah.
like what I'm envisioning is that like when you take someone's hand and you give them the hand to give them the step up, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like that goes
Mm,
straight to my heart, right?
mm, mm,
Because that's what we all need. We all, or I shouldn't say need, we're all seeking that feeling of what it feels like, and like you said, it's taking care of ourselves, but to be in the loving embrace of ourselves, of one another, as a collective, of the universe. So many things, but it's also when I'm thinking about like our ingredients and our soups,
yeah.
the way you stir it together, you alchemize it, you blend it in Joe's special way, in
Right.
only the way you can do it.
That's right.
And isn't that, like you mentioned, the 8 billion people, like the people who are meant to go to you, the people who are meant to come here, listen to the
Totally.
podcast, go to Susie's
Yes.
classes, like they're all like, that's because there's like resonance going on, but
Yeah.
there's enough soup for all of us. There's
100. Exactly. There's enough soup. Yeah, enough soup for all of us. Exactly. I love that.
yeah.
Because that's true, isn't it? It's like that's the beauty when we begin to, that's why the inner work is so important and the authenticity of who I really am, and then begin to allow that to come forth, which is my unique soup and
Yeah.
yours, right? And there are all these thousands of flavors available.
Mhm.
And, and yeah, I just love that whole idea and that concept. There was something as you were describing the qualities and the ingredients you were putting in your soup. In AA, they have this, how does it work? And they use how as an acronym for honesty, openness, and willingness.
Mm.
And
Yeah, I
that's
love that.
like, well, that's how it works with honesty, meaning being honest to thyself first and
Yeah.
foremost, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that openness. So that's where the removal of right or wrong or good or bad. And
Mhm.
then the willingness to see it differently, to
Yeah.
change, to grow,
Mm.
to be on that journey.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
yeah, that's like I got goosebumps again. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think the image, and then because you often talk about, when you're just sharing stories or your experience
Mhm.
within our community of soul care, I hear you talk a lot about the speaking to your inner child, the little
Mm.
boy who
Yeah.
is you, who came up as you, but talking to him in just the most gentle, generous ways and asking what he needed. And that's when I had the image. I think it was me and my little girl. When I had the
Mm.
image of
Mm.
holding another's hand and,
Yeah.
supporting her, it was me. But why is that work? Like, how does that work fit into your work and even your being? And why is it necessary to
Well,
revisit those experiences in our inner child?
yeah. Thank you,
Hmm.
Marie.
Hmm.
That's such a pivotal question because it was a pivotal experience that changed my life. That was
Hmm.
another benchmark for me. When I started to I used to feel crazy because I've had the degrees and did the certifications and I had all this knowledge. And yet at the same time, my reactivity to life was still like so high, and I could feel the anger and the rage come up. And it's like, what's wrong with you? It's like when
Yeah.
how I felt that I was schizophrenic almost, right? It's
Hmm.
like I was two different people when realized I actually was
Hmm.
through Susie's work.
Hmm.
It began a little bit before Susie. She helped give me a language for it, but it was like, and recognizing, oh, there's the adult, who resonates with these universal truths and is the seeker and is really interested and gets it. But yet the reactivity was coming from an inner child within me, little Joe, that had a belief system that was based upon not being enough, not
Yeah.
feeling worthy, not feeling loved, like for real,
Yeah.
right? And that he created all these survival strategies: kindness, love, generosity, playfulness. That's where my codependence came from, so much, right? And it worked for a long time until it didn't. But when I began to get in touch with, oh, his belief system, his operating system, it's like little Joe 1.0 was not worthy, not
Hmm.
lovable, not important, didn't matter. And that was his perception growing up of who he was. So he built a life on that.
Yeah.
And so there was always this overcompensation, right? But never really getting to that core truth. And
Yeah.
that's why this work was so painful. When I began to really do that and begin to understand, oh, that reactivity is not from the 60-year-old man who's done all these courses, who loves life, who's on the adventure, and that part is true. That's coming from a 6-year-old. And when I made the distinction, that changed everything. I really got clear. There's the adult, and then there's a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 5-year-old, 8-year-old. So when I say, whose voice is that? And it's that simple a question. And as soon as I was able to identify it as a 6-year-old, how would I, as a grown man right now, relate to a 6-year-old?
Hmm.
Like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. You must
Yeah.
be so scared right now. Yeah, I am. I'd
That.
ha I'd have a very honest dialogue with him. And here's the thing, it's not important just to intellectually say, "Oh, it's so understandable." It's the tone of the sincerity of the word. I sincerely care about him as if he were real because he is. If it
Hmm.
were some other little 6-year-old in the middle of a
Hmm.
field crying. Oh, quick sidebar. So that actually did happen. This was years ago. There was a little 6-year-old in the middle of a field crying, right? I was in some park and he was all alone. And I walked over and I got down eye level and I said, "Oh, honey, what's the matter? Are you lost?" And he stopped crying. He looked up at me, goes, "Well, what do you think?"
Yes.
Fair enough. Fair enough, little one. All right, I got you. Come on, let's go find your
Mhm,
folks. But
mhm.
and here's the thing, I validated his feelings. So when we validate, this is really cool, Maureen, you're gonna dig this. When we validate their feelings, not
Uh-huh.
trying to take them away, not trying to teach him anything, he's just feeling seen and heard for what he's feeling, he
Okay.
starts to organically feel valuable.
Beautiful.
That's where self-worth begins to grow,
Yeah.
begins to come in. Because I used to
Yeah.
think, well, self-love, self-worth, how do you get there? How do you do that? Oh, do the
Mhm.
affirmation in the mirror. That was just all intellectual. It never really worked for me. It
Absolutely.
never really
Mhm.
sank in.
Mhm.
This work, bullseye, because I began to change. That
Mhm.
reactivity began to change because I began to see him and he began to feel truly seen and heard, felt safe enough to express even more
Mhm.
feelings,
Mm,
right?
beautiful.
And that's ongoing. I
Mhm.
bring him with me. He's with me wherever I go. I'm very
Mm.
conscious and aware of him
Yeah. Yeah.
and whatever age he's at. And
Yeah.
I give him space. If there's a
Mhm.
reactivity, is that the adult or is that whatever? Oh, it's probably most of the time him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me, before we met, I was thinking of a question around, ageism, but I don't
Mhm.
think that that's exactly right. I think that the questions, what would you love to see as a new normal for humanity, no matter what the age is?
What a beautiful question, really. That we have an innate sense of compassion for one another. I don't have to agree with you. There's something going on for you. I know that there's pain probably
Hmm. Hmm.
underneath that, and there's some little person in you
Yeah.
that's scared, that
Hmm.
doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And if I can tap into that with compassion, it shifts everything for me. It shifts my judgment of you needing to be different.
Yeah.
It
So
opens my
beautiful.
heart to you. Yeah. What about you, Marie?
Absolutely. I think it comes to me in a vision, and it's people gathering together and, kind of playing off what you said, is looking into each other's eyes
Mm,
and seeing the person in front of me as whole, worthy, and complete in just who they are, that we're all divine beings and we treat each other as such.
yeah,
And I don't know why, but it just popped in my head like, gosh, it doesn't even seem like we need AI at all. Like, why do we need all these artificial things when we're these divine, I guess someone had just said, fractals of consciousness walking around and
totally.
exploring this earthly plane? But the invitation is to make it as beautiful as we possibly can. And the support is there for us to do so.
Yeah. Because beauty and love and joy are nature.
Hmm.
If it's other than that, for expansion and growth, if it's
Yeah.
other than that, then we're acting out from some other place. And I
Hmm.
love what you just said about the AI thing. I've never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. The infinite intelligence that creates the universe that created us is already within us. No
Yeah.
AI can get in touch with that. We already have it. Once again, we're just focusing externally for an answer. When the
Yeah.
answer all along, hi,
Hmm.
Dorothy, it's been in my backyard the whole time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's right.
Yeah. Having kids that are college age ish, I think about the AI question here and there and what
Hmm.
do I think about it? And I think the parallel to the work we do and then having the podcast where it's like this just ever expanding,
Mm,
coming out of the woodwork, people to interview who have built their life's work on their creativity and ingenuity and imagination. And it's like all here, it's all here. And you mentioned, I think, inspiration somewhere today, and
yeah,
where we inspire one another. And yeah, I think it's why we both love the conversation.
totally. Inspire in spirit, and it
Mhm.
affirms for one another what we already innately know to be true about ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. So being with you and being in your presence and being in your company and on this podcast gives us an opportunity to celebrate that truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's the thing I love when you talked about holding her hand. And it reminded me, it's like, there's independence and there's codependence, but the truth is there's interdependence. We're connected to one another. So it's not about being this independent, I'm totally whole, unique, and complete within myself. Yes, and
Hmm.
it's to have connection and community with one another because we are one another.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing for me. That's the joy. That's why I stay the community that
Yeah.
Susie created that
Hmm.
we're in. It's like dessert,
Hmm.
I want more, I
Yes.
love that. And I would love to have other guys come in and
Hmm.
be a part of it, but that's whatever, that's,
Well, and I think just putting that desire out there, that intention, they already are.
they already are.
I believe
Yeah.
they're lining up actually.
Yeah.
And the more we shine our lives along with every sister and brother on the path, it's let's do this. It's go time.
Yeah, it is go time, isn't it? For
It's go
sure.
time. So we've talked for a while, and I've been asking my guests as we kind of complete this conversation, anything coming to mind that you want to leave the listener with?
Ah, oh, it would just lead to a whole nother conversation I want to have with you. So maybe for our next time, our next visit. I'm feeling complete. I'm feeling a lot of gratitude and appreciation for you and the work that you've done. Congratulations on your 1 year past plus
Thank you.
podcast,
Hmm.
your commitment, your devotion, your dedication to getting this word out, to getting this information out
Yeah.
that I think people are hungry for. Even if they don't know it, once they hear it and tap in, they'll see themselves in it.
Yes.
I'm honored to be a part of your journey and thank you for including me. Yeah,
Oh, you're so welcome. I love it too. And I know that I'm on purpose. I'm
yeah,
on purpose
yeah.
because I started to peel back the layers a few years back. And then I started to listen to myself. And I became my guidance point. And that increases each and every day my trust in myself and the guidance I received to say,
Yeah.
"Hey, Joe, let's record again."
Yeah.
Maureen, you need to go take a rest. And like
Mm.
every other human, I miss that sometimes too, but I try to more and more and more follow the guidance. So,
That's
yeah.
the journey. Susie and I were
Hmm.
talking about that. I know we're done here, but it was
Yeah.
like being on the adventure with that spirit.
Hmm.
And it's like, and not being attached to what it's supposed to look like. I think if there's a takeaway,
Yeah.
that's one of them. I gave up what anything is supposed to look like and
Hmm.
just be obedient to my spirit, moment by moment, day at a time, to the best of my ability. And my
Yeah.
life looks nothing like I thought it was going to, but catch
Yeah.
this, it's more.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's more than I imagined. Thank you.
So good. We're
Yeah.
so grateful for the listeners too for being here with us. And this will not be the last recording, I know. And yeah, we'll just leave it there. Thank you, Joe. I'll leave your website and the ways to get in touch with you in
Thank
the
you.
show notes and for
Yeah.
anyone who reaches out. Thanks to the listener. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical Sisterhood. To learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs or join the Mystical Sisterhood membership, visit maureenspielman.com or mysticalsisterhood.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode.